My name is Bryson, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the basics of SolidWorks, which for those of you that don't know, is computer-aided drafting software that allows you to design 3D models for a near endless number of purposes. However, today we're just going to be going over the basics. To do that, by covering some important questions that you should always answer before starting work as to give you the best plan of approach, some basic tools at your disposal that will be instrumental to success. I'll walk through on how to combine those tools and tricks together in order to make some shapes and parts, as well as a quick overview on some of these skills. Alright, so let's say that you've decided that you want to make something in SolidWorks, but before you just jump right away, there's a few things that you always want to ask yourself. First up, is what type of work you're wanting to do, because the answer to that question determines the type of file that you're going to open up. So when you go to open up SolidWorks and start a new project, you're going to meet a prompt that looks like this. This prompt asks you what type of file you want to open up, and there are three types of files: part, assembly, and drawing. A part file is used to design a singular piece or part with the name. So for example, if you are wanting to use SolidWorks to draw a car, you use the part file to draw the individual components such as bolts, springs, and so forth. Or for a more down-to-earth example, if you are wanting to draw a calculator, the calculator has two parts: the calculator itself and the case. And it would be, a part file would be used to make the calculator or the case. Whereas an assembly file is used to combine part files together to form more complex creations. So in the case of the car example, we use an assembly file to combine those small components into something much bigger and complicated, like an engine, a door, and so forth. Or for in the case of the calculator, we can use an assembly file to combine the case with the calculator. And lastly, a drawing file is used to break down a part or assembly into 2D form, so its design can be easily transferred and recreated. Think of it as making the blueprints for your drawings. However, for today's purposes, we're only going to be focusing on working with our part file, as these are the building blocks to any and all work done within SolidWorks. And so, as I mentioned before, part files are where the actual drawing happens, where things are created. Because of this, understanding how to make the most of the features found within a part file is crucial to success using the program. But what do I mean by drawing? After all, this is a computer program that I'm talking about, so nothing is actually being put down on pen and paper. In this case, drawing refers to the process of creating 2D shapes while in what's known as sketch mode. From there, those drawings can be manipulated to form tangible 3D objects. And this image on the screen is what a part file looks like when you first open it up. Kind of underwhelming for something supposedly so important. But trust me, in just a little bit, it'll start looking a lot more interesting. But how do we go about making that happen? Well, first off, we'll need to have a shape in mind that we want to make. And for this example, let's say we want to make a cube with a circle cut through the middle of it. Now that you have a goal in mind, the real fun can begin. So now it's time to open up a sketch by using this button shown in the top left here. Once you do that, you're faced with one more decision before you can truly get started. And that question is what plane you want to start the drawing from. Now this sounds complicated, but a good general rule of thumb to follow to decide on this is to pick the plane that captures the most complex aspects of the part. Now, since we're making a cube, the plane we choose doesn't really matter all that much, since all the sides of a cube are identical. We can just arbitrarily pick the front plane to keep things nice and simple. When it comes to more complex parts, this decision can hold a lot more weight, so it is pretty important to keep in mind. Now that we've chosen a starting plane, it's finally time to start drawing. But there are a number of ways to draw a cube, but we are going to go with the simplest. And that is by using the line tool. In order to do this, you go to the top of your screen and over to the left on the toolbar, and you select this image here. And then, if you select that, you click wherever you would like to start the drawing from. Now, you can start the drawing from clicking anywhere on the screen, but it is typically best to start on the origin that is automatically displayed by SolidWorks, and this helps to just keep everything nice and simple. And from there, you're just going to want to go about drawing a square. Simple as that. One thing to keep in mind though, when first creating new lines, is that you don't have to get everything right or exactly perfect. Everything can be adjusted later on. Right now, the main priority is just to get the general shape down. I mean, as you can see here, mine kind of looks more like a rectangle than a square. But that's okay, because now we've got all our 4 lines down. We can go in and alter them to the exact specifications we want. We do that by selecting the Smart Dimension icon that's also found in the top left corner, as shown here, that is right next to the line icon. And we use this tool by selecting all of the lines individually and changing their size. And since we're making a cube, we want them all to be the same length. So let's make them all 4 inches long for this example. And with that, we're done with the sketching portion of the work. So we can go ahead and close out of the sketch using the icon found in the upper right corner and circled right here. Now we have a square, but it's still in 2D form, so it doesn't help us all that much. So now what we want to do to make it a little more helpful is to take that 2D sketch and stretch it out into 3D form. And we can do that by using the extruded boss/base feature that's found in the upper left corner of the Features tab that's circled here. Now notice that we switched from the sketch to the Features tab, but that's fairly simple. And within its menu, we want to ignore everything, all of this, except for this one box right here that allows us to change the depth of the extrusion. And once again, we want to change that to 4 inches to match the rest of the sides of the square. Now we have ourselves a 4 inch by 4 inch by 4 inch cube. All that's left to do is to follow a very similar process to make the circular cutout through the middle of it. So from here, we want to go back to the Sketch tab and open up another sketch. But this time, since we're not just dealing with empty space, we're going to choose one of the sides of the cube to make the sketch on, rather than just a blank plane. And again, due to this being a cube, we can just pick a side at random. But we'll stick with what we went with before, and select the front side. Now obviously, we can't use the line command again, because as you may have noticed when you were using it, it only draws straight lines. So instead, we need to use the tool right next to it, the circle tool. Once you've selected that, place a circle anywhere on the square. From there, go back to that Smart Dimension tool and make the circle have 1 inch diameter by clicking on the circle itself and then altering its size. As you can see here, the circle has changed size, and then you can see the little 1 inch right there. And now you can place the circle in the center of the square by dimensioning 2 inches away from each side, as you can see here. And now we are 2 inches from this side, 2 inches from the top, and then we are directly in the middle. With all that done, we can exit out of the sketch and go back to the Features tab. But now since we're wanting to cut out the circle and not expand it, we need to select the Extrude Cut tool that's found right next, pretty close to the extruded boss that we used before. After clicking on that, select the circle sketch is what we want to cut out, because SolidWorks hasn't done that for you automatically. And change the cut depth to be 4 inches, just like we did in the extruded boss tool. And with that, we have now completed what we set out to do. Now granted, this isn't a particularly useful shape, but the steps used to make it can be translated and expanded upon to make a near infinite number of things to fit whatever need you may have. Now before we end, I feel that it is important to point out that this was a very basic introduction, and that there is much more to SolidWorks that simply can't be covered in such a short time. But you can most certainly use these techniques as a starting point for diving deeper into the program. And finally, I want to reiterate everything I covered today, because it was a lot of information. So the important things to remember are, to firstly, always determine what type of file you need. And if you're just starting on a project, odds are it will be a part file. Assuming that's the case, you then want to start a sketch and draw the shape of the object that you're wanting to make, and then extrude it. From there,